All right. Welcome everyone to our second live LinkedIn session here with Tyler Moebius, CEO and founder of SmartMedia Technologies. In the first session a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Web3 for loyalty. We talked about how Visa's loyalty solution works, powered by SmartMedia Technologies. This time, we're going to talk about the future of fandom with Web3. Also, a very interesting topic, and we're going to untangle what brands can learn from sport teams. And just to kick it off, the first question for you, Tyler. Very happy that you're here today. Welcome. What have you been up to?
Yeah, thanks, Marc. Great to be back, and excited to have everybody along for the ride. Last time we spoke, it's been pretty busy. Just got back. We spent the last week in Las Vegas at the Super Bowl, which is one of North America's probably biggest sporting event. And lots of excitement and around the Super Bowl, what is coined as the Taylor Lift effect. So since we have Taylor Swift, who was dating one of the athletes at the Super Bowl, lots of discussion around that. And really around, what is it that what can brands learn from sports teams around fandom and passion points and so forth, and then how does that sort of dovetail into Web3? So it's been an exciting couple of weeks, to say the least.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, excited to hear that, Tyler. I also followed the Super Bowl. Very, very impressive performances, and also ads. Of course, it's always the most interesting thing for us marketers to see what brands think about and what they do. And before we now jump into more questions, a quick remark. Welcome everyone who joined the stream. GM, I see here in the chat already. We plan about 20 minutes discussion, and then we have about 10 minutes for questions. So in total, 30 minutes. Ask your questions in the chat, and we'll answer them afterwards. All right. Yeah. So coming back from Super Bowl and all those like sports teams engaging their fans in absolutely new ways. Is that a phenomenon that you see in general with sports marketing, or what's new about that?
Yeah, no, I think sports particularly. I mean, you look at Nike, right? We look at Adidas and so forth. It's always been the sports brands who were early adopters of Web3, who are really focused on fandom, particularly in the community. People are most passionate around their sports teams. I think what's been really interesting is when we talk about Web3 loyalty, particularly, I think it's interesting when you look at teams, because sports teams don't have a loyalty challenge. You're a diehard fan of Manchester United or the 49ers, you're always a loyal fan, right? But they do share the similar challenges as brands, which is around, they do oftentimes have a fan engagement challenge. How do you engage those fans and create both a fan experience at the stadium and at home? But this is nothing new. In fact, we launched a campaign in 2021 with the NBA across Europe, across 8 European countries, where the NBA wanted to celebrate, their 75th anniversary, and really bring fandom to Europe along their tour, and leveraged Web3 wallets and tokenized experiences to really fuel that fandom. So it's nothing new. We're seeing definitely a lot more teams leaning into it as it's becoming a priority. And we're seeing, that more and more teams and sponsors who sponsor sports teams looking to better leverage Web3 to drive fandom, loyalty, and fan engagement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as we see this kind of new generation coming along, that generation that's always online, always digital, we really kind of move into more, they call it connected fandom, right? Where you would engage with fans even outside of the live experience. We have some stats here. So about 90% of fans interact with sports during off season, and about 80% of Gen Z fans want to follow their professional athlete online. And now, speaking about that, is that limited to certain sports or limited to certain fan segments, or do you see that across all of you do with sports teams?
Yeah, we see it across. It kind of takes shape in different forms for different leagues, for different sports. We've done work with FIFA, which is obviously, how do you keep that fandom alive, between, large periods of time, right? Same with, the Olympics. How do you keep fandom? How do you ignite the fandom between the flames, right? So going from Paris 24, which is coming up, to then Milan 26 to LA 28, they're really challenged in keeping fandom alive, right? And keeping those fans engaged during that period of time. But you're seeing it, with the NBA and with the NFL and particular teams. All of those teams, kind of really face the same challenges, which is adding value. And I kind of put that into two buckets. One is teams are challenged on adding more value and creating more value for their fans. It's becoming harder and harder to be a good fan. Especially with this whole concept of Fan Plus, right? Or Paramount Plus. So now as a fan, I need 3 or 4 different subscriptions to be able to follow my favorite teams, which makes it more expensive. So it's not only fragmented, where I have different apps or different subscriptions to be a true fan. It's more expensive for me. Ticket prices are going up. So it's becoming harder and more expensive to become a fan. And so all of the teams are really looking at how do they, give more value back to those fans through digital merchandising, through different types of experiences, whether that being NFT ticketing or backstage metaverse experiences where you can do a meet and greet with athletes and unlock unique experiences. So we're seeing the same challenges across all sports teams around that. And how do you create more value for fans?
Mm-hmm. And I think a good recent example of that is the Las Vegas Golden Knights, right? They launched a very simple experience where fans could basically mint NFTs at the games themselves and then unlock new experiences around the team. Do you have examples from SmartMedia technologies where you worked with sport brands that
Yeah.
would make this a bit more tangible?
Yeah. So some of the more recent kind of Web3 activations that we did is we partnered with FIFA on the Women's World Cup across Australia, to where fans could actually mint a digital object as a digital collectible, as a token or memorabilia from the matches that they actually attended. What was cool about that activation was not only was it, a digital object and an NFT, but that could actually represented as a digital prepaid card, where the card artwork was actually updated with the match, and then you could add that card to your Apple Wallet as a memorabilia. We also just finished an activation with the X Games, where we did the summer and the winter X Games, where we launched an entire Web3 loyalty solution for their fans. And then also incorporated NFT ticketing as part of that. So you could buy a regular purchase, a regular ticket, then upgrade that to an NFT ticket, and then that NFT ticket then unlocked various perks and benefits. So kind of classic token gated loyalty that was actually tied to the NFT ticket itself. I think NFT ticketing, is a solution that we offer for teams. We believe, are really bullish on. Not only, can you use blockchain for NFTs for, counterfeit tickets, or making sure that every Swiftie fan gets the NFT drop of that ticket so that they can go to a concert. But it's also onboarding into a larger always-on fan engagement and fan loyalty solution as part of that as well.
Mm-hmm. That's super interesting. Again, to the audience, thanks for tuning in. You can ask questions in the chat. We'll answer it in the end. Keep it going. I see a lot of comments already. Yeah, and Tyler, we have a lot of brand leaders here. We have hopefully a lot of sport leaders here who are still in the Web 2.0 world and are asking themselves, why don't I just launch a normal Web 2.0 loyalty program? Doesn't that all work almost the same? Couldn't I just do a platform and kind of issue tickets and rewards and all that? What's the advantage of using Web3 for this?
Yeah. Again, I kind of put it into, several buckets. One is, with Web3 and loyalty and particularly for around fandom, it's really around creating community. And, we saw different iterations of this, such as Socios launching fan tokens, right? Where fans could actually vote for like upcoming drafts or which athletes they should pick or they should trade and so forth. So we see that it's a great way to really engage your audience and where there's real ownership in the team itself. I think, we need to expand that. I think, the Socios fan token was still kind of rooted more on a, speculative aspect of it rather than really focused on accessibility and utility. Second, I think that we're seeing an overall trend and kind of movement towards decentralized, Web3 apps and around loyalty, particularly because I think there's just ongoing concern around launching a loyalty app or launching a fan engagement loyalty app as a team on Apple or Android with fears that you're going to be subject to 30% marketplace fees and so forth. And when you think, there's just a bigger trend that brands aren't launching apps on traditional native platforms. And they're using progressive web apps. They're using more Web3 apps as a result of that. Because if you're Manchester United, you don't need the install base of all of the app users coming into the app store, going through to realize that Man U has a new app. They have the audience. They need to do one social post in order for people to go in and download it or be part of a new experience, rather than having to rely on the install base of the native app store. So we're seeing that as a really big trend and moving towards that. And then just the interoperability of fan tokens and points and loyalty and being able to make those tradable and fungible across blockchains and so forth. A lot of teams, they might have, signed a licensing deal with crypto.com, like some of the NFL teams have and so forth, or FIFA has a deal with Algorand. And so creating that interoperability so that a fan can bring their digital objects or bring their jersey or their AR kit that they might be wearing on TikTok, and then being able to bring that into, Fortnite as a skin or into Roblox. Again, that interoperability is all enabled by Web3. And that's where we see, real utility for Web3 around loyalty and digital merchandise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you just described really like meets the next gen consumer where they are and how they use technology, right? And I think a key principle of what you just described is digital ownership and the ability to own a digital asset and become part of a brand, become part of an experience, a part of a club, and take that with you and really like call it your own. And in my research that I do on the brand side, I usually talk about community-led brands. And for me, that's a new phenomenon that's really infused with digital ownership. An example for that is what Pudgy Penguins is doing. Pudgy Penguins is one of the most famous NFT collections, and they really building up a brand together with the community and let the community participate in whatever they do. They have a co-ownership in their assets, in the IP. They have a core revenue with whatever is sold using that IP. And that's a really good example of a project that comes out of the Web3 space and basically applies that model of community lab brands. And I think the same is true for sports clubs and in general consumer brands as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're also seeing sponsors really starting to lean in as well. And we work with a lot of the large brands who have sports sponsorships agreements. So they've made an investment to be an official sponsor of a particular league or of a team, and traditionally that's those are large checks, and that comes with some naming rights of a stadium or to be an official sponsor. But teams are under pressure to not only generate more value for their fans, but to also generate value for their sponsors as well. And those sponsors are looking for always on engagement and ways to be able to engage with those fans in a seamless digital first experience. Both the fans, not just at the stadium, but all of the fans at home who are watching on network television or what have you. And so we've really focused on providing that seamless solution for sponsors to be able to create those experiences with those fans through digital objects and through token gated experiences, and also even just focusing around simple things like sweepstakes. Sweepstakes has always been a pretty common tactic where you sponsor a brand or you sponsor a team. That team runs a sweepstakes. You collect emails, but the brand experience just ends right there. It's about 2.5 seconds of exposure. And it's not a really great fan experience. So focusing more on gamified giveaways is what we call them, and helping those sponsors to be able to engage with those fans in a more gamified, fun, and a more rewarding experience as well is a big opportunity for the teams.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think another interesting use case that you haven't mentioned yet is how can you connect digital and physical experiences at the event itself. So that's again a very easy example at the concert or at the sport game where you put up a QR code and fans scan a QR code, earn a digital collectible, and then with that collectible unlock new experiences. And
one example we did is with professional bull riding, right? So where we created an experience to where we put up on the jumbotron at one of the events the QR code, and I actually I live on a ranch and actually have horses, so I can say this. But these are cowboys with like flip phones, right? So if you can onboard cowboys onto Web3, that's a huge testament. And where we had cowboys scanning the QR code to be able to receive their NFB, and what this was a non-fungible bull, where we gave out a NFT that was the actual ownership of one of the bulls on tour. So you held this NFT, and that NFT was your ownership of that particular bull on tour, and you had naming rights and so forth as part of that experience. And so, and then making it so at the stadium when your team scores, you can make it rain loyalty tokens, right? You can make it rain loyalty points, where in augmented reality at the stadium, people are grabbing those loyalty tokens, and then they're able to redeem that for an augmented reality jersey that can be worn on TikTok or on Snapchat, right? So this is all happening today that we're enabling across our partners and so forth. So it's very much real and very much accessible for any fan with a smartphone.
Yeah. Super cool. Again, to the audience, if you have questions, ask them in the chat. We'll answer them very soon. The last question before we jump to the Q&A, Tyler, for you is, now, if you're a brand leader, I mean, you look at that market, the Web3 loyalty market, and there are a lot of tools out there. and it's very hard to kind of discern who does what and who's good in what. Why should brands work with smart media technologies? What's your USP and what's special about your solution?
Yeah. Look, I would say just, we've been doing it for almost 6 years now, in terms of an entire dedicated team focusing not just on building an enterprise, SaaS platform that's end to end. I think what makes us really unique is that we understand that we need to bridge between Web 2 to Web 3. And that's really why we've been able to make the inroads that we have with 50 plus Fortune 500 companies that are using our platform, is because it's easy to get the marketers and the CMOs excited about the future of loyalty and engagement. In order to get a campaign live, you need to get the lawyers and the infosec and the chief security officer, I wouldn't say excited, but at least to be able to say yes to move forward with a Web3 activation. And that's where we really excel, is on more of the compliance, the legal, and bringing that experience, globally, so that we can operate a Web3 loyalty program, or we could operate a Web3 gamified giveaway across the globe, and knowing that there's different nuances in every region around that one. Two, strategy, really just understanding, helping the clients really think through, should this be a Web3 activation, or should it just be a Web2 activation that is Web3 enabled? So it doesn't need to be Web3 today. It's fine being Web2, but it needs to be Web3 enabled. So when your users ask, can I take this digital object or this skin or these loyalty points that I've acquired as part of your loyalty program, can I take those with me and take custodial ownership of that? When they start asking for that, it's simply a config file. It's a push of a button on our platform to enable those fans to be able to trade and sell, and gift their loyalty points. And so that's why, enterprises partner with SmartMedia Technologies, is for that configurability of the platform to be able to meet any of their business cases or use cases, to meet them where they are in that journey today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a really key thing here, that you combine those two worlds, Web 2 and Web 3. And what I've also felt in working with you now is that you have a very strong conviction about what's coming for Web 3, the vision of Web 3, and what's possible in terms of user empowerment and consumer empowerment. I think having that in the back of your mind while you're building those solutions is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all right. Then let's jump to the questions. We have a first one from Evan Thibault. What do you believe to be the top barriers to adoption of this technology from a brand education perspective? Do they see value today?
Yeah, I think we're making huge strides around understanding, like what I like to say is, Web3 is not the why. So, if a marketer's showing up saying, I want to use Web3, and it's like, and when I ask why, and they say, well, because it's new and it's innovative, I'm like, no, Web3 is the how. You need to really understand, what is the why? What are you trying to accomplish? Is interoperability important to you? Is composability for this loyalty program or for your engagement program important? Is not having a native app important because you're planning on building a currency of engagement around loyalty or in-app purchases, and you don't want to be subject to third-party marketplace fees, right? So I think, overcoming and understanding that Web3 is the how, it's not the why, and that's first and foremost. And then two, just continuing to abstract the complexity of Web3 for end users. So just, out of the 8 million, wallets that we are the custodians of on our platform, 99% of those users have no idea that it's actually, a Web3 wallet per se, right? Because we made it so simple. It was a 2-tap onboarding onto a mobile device. Yet they're getting all of the ownership, and they're getting the interoperability that comes with that, but they don't necessarily know it. They just think it's a cool mobile experience, and that they have as part of that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Second question: how can traditional brands like Coca-Cola can be community-led?
How can traditional brands like Coca-Cola be community-led?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's a big step, right?
Definitely.
It starts with Coke wanting to have their brand be community led. I think Nike's done a really great job of this, and in fact, I had a conversation with a gentleman who used to work at Nike, and who had said that it was, for the longest time, it was Nike's point of view that they knew what was best for consumers, right? That they would never allow a consumer to design a pair of Nike shoes, because they're the technical pros, right? Around innovation. And now we've seen that change, particularly from Nike, where Nike is now opening it up and allowing the community to design digital versions of the shoe, and then allowing the community to vote on which shoes should be made into real physical shoes. So it starts with the brand wanting to let the community lead the brand, and giving them the tools to be able to actually have impact, and have the brand be community led.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Nike is a very good example for that. Lacoste is another great example of kind of community-led brand and product building. Lacoste launched the Underworld program, for example, where they create products together with consumers. And I think in the end, it's always a question: how much also power are you willing to give up as a brand to your consumers? And I think that's a questions, especially the big brands need to grapple with. And for now, they solved it by kind of doing isolated Web3 activations. We've seen that with Nike, we've seen it with Lacoste, or even Starbucks. Those Web3 programs are all more or less still isolated from their main consumer base. But as they start integrating that into the main base, that will obviously become a more important question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then next question here. What are the success metrics that most of your brand clients are using to evaluate whether they want to use Web3 enabled features versus traditional loyalty? From Andy Anderson.
Yeah. The primary success, or again, the primary decision that's really being driven off of it is around, do they see the value around interoperability and linking loyalty programs across their vertical or ecosystem? So, we kind of briefly touched on this on the last one. We've seen, linked loyalty programs is no new concept, right? You can be part of Star Alliance, which is United Airlines and Lufthansa. I'm part of that same linked loyalty program. Yet the friction as a consumer is very high between actually being able to, allow my points to be interoperable across airlines or across hotels or across car rental and so forth. So we're seeing, the travel industry particularly really lean in to Web3 because they believe in the value of interoperability and linked loyalty, to where, creating a better travel experience is like first and foremost. And they see the value in interoperable loyalty points and Web3 wallets, and moving away from siloed databases and siloed loyalty programs to a more open protocol, I would say that that's like the most obvious, that's immediate today in terms of why brands are really, leaning in on Web3 as a loyalty solution around that interoperability and linking and building a larger ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I think we covered most of the questions by now. We're now 30 minutes in. There's a question around the Visa loyalty collaboration. I would suggest that we answer that separately and keep the topic on sport brands and fandom. And I think, yeah, that's all. Any more questions from the audience? If not...
Yeah, I see one from Lamb. Is there any use cases where NFT holders can enjoy promotions in the real world, like buy one, get one free at a bar or at a restaurant? I'm looking for some projects like these. Lamb, if you go to our website to smartmediatech.io, you'll see case studies on there of where we're providing an NFT. We did an activation for Unilever with Ben and Jerry's, where you did a AR scavenger hunt. You found an NFT that you could then pick up into your wallet. And then when you tapped on that NFT, it displayed a QR code. And so then you could walk into any scoop shop, into any Ben and Jerry's ice cream shop, and actually redeem that NFT for a free scoop of ice cream as part of that. The NFT, when scanned, would leave your wallet and then would then fly in a cow, a digital cow that showed that you redeemed your free scoop of ice cream. And if you collected more of those through purchases or what have you, it unlocked other perks and benefits and then started to lead into, a larger engagement solution. We did the same thing with bars and beer. So on-premise activation for alcohol brands is really important to them. And that's also a great way of being able to issue NFTs that could then be redeemed for physical items as at the actual retailer store and so forth. Our enterprise platform then integrates with their ERPs so that you can then redeem those and actually tie those into the point of sale so that NFT can be redeemed and then be tracked all the way through, and so that you could track the sales and the redemptions as part of that.
All right. He just asked a follow-up questions again from Lam. Nice. How do the users benefit from that offer? All right. Then another question coming in, Tyler. Are you using account abstraction to prepay for gas? For the ones not familiar with blockchain technology, gas is an essential kind of currency within blockchain systems that you need to deploy to conduct transactions on the blockchain.
Yeah, probably not enough time to go in. That's a big element of our enterprise platform, is that we are blockchain agnostic. We allow for either user minting or what we refer to as like publisher minting, so the advertisers can actually either pay for the gas fees, or the users can pay for those gas fees if they want to take custodial ownership. So that's actually a big part of our IP, is the ability to be chain agnostic and also be able to meet the needs of minting, of either making that user controlled or making that advertiser controlled, and providing those permissions, and then working across both layer 1, layer 2. So that we can meet the business needs of the brand. So we are chain agnostic and provide the solutions that really meet the needs of our enterprise clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very helpful. And also adding to that question is another question around how do you handle NFT collection with wallets versus emails? Do you require an email in order to receive an NFT at the outset, or is it just an additional hurdle to immediate collection? I think that's also a good one to answer.
Yeah. So we provide custodial services on the behalf of the wallets that we manage, right? So we require that a user registers with an email for the wallet. That's just so that we can be compliant ourselves with OFAC and making sure that, you know, it's kind of along the lines of KYW, of know your wallet. That's a requirement that we brought along from Web 2 to Web 3, and it's why our enterprise clients choose us. We also want to be able to provide a brand safe environment for brands. So because we provide the custodial services, we can also ensure that bad actors aren't dropping unsolicited NFTs into users' wallets. So we effectively act as a spam filter to our wallets to ensure that those users are only being presented with NFTs or with objects or with experiences that are brand safe as part of that. So we do have the ability to allow a user to be able to link their own custodial wallet to ours, and remain anonymous, and to be able to use their wallets for that. But that's a pretty low use case. Most of our clients are wanting a full brand safe environment versus a traditional Web3 anonymous environment. If they're that savvy, or if they're looking for a solution like that, they can just go get their own Web3 wallet and provide that to their users.
Yeah, and also in the last years, the UX made so much progress that it's basically as easy as signing up with an email to create the wallet in the backend. Yeah, and all right, Tyler, we only have already over time now, but I see more questions coming in. The two last questions. First one is, are the costs of Web3 activations higher than the cost of traditional large-scale activation campaigns? I think very hard to answer in general, but maybe you have a perspective on that.
Yeah, I know it's a great question. I think we as a company are, we want to be a more cost-effective solution than Web2. That's the holy grail. Like, if you can provide Web3 loyalty programs, Web3 engagement programs, and services that are as cost effective, or if not even cheaper, than traditional Web2, that's where we want to move towards, right? And for all intents and purposes, I think that's the entire theory behind Web3 and going decentralized, is that you don't have to pay the take rates of the centralized platforms. I mean, if we were to use apps as an example, and if you were to do in-purchases, if your app had in-purchase component to it, then you're paying 30% of that revenue to either Android or to Apple, right? So there is a lot of margin, or a lot of take rate, that is taken from centralized platforms. And obviously, moving towards a decentralized web, that is the sort of the holy grail, and the promise is that it is more cost effective. So you can pass those savings either on to the brand, or ultimately onto the creators of that, which is the end user, so that they can participate in the economics and in the creator economy.
That's super interesting, Tyler. I would love to continue with our session. Now, the last one. What's your quick view of the next 10 years? Maybe we can change that a bit and not look at the next 10, but maybe at the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. What are you most excited about when it comes to Web3 and loyalty?
Yeah, I think, as you can tell from the gray hair, I started, my career in 1997, and feel like this is like, I've seen this movie before, where it was, we brought ads to the internet, and we watched the internet and people saying it was a fad. And then we watched the .com boom, and we saw the bust, and we saw all the naysayers. And now look at Google, and look at the internet companies that came out of that, right? So what I'm really excited about is just the continued work of the Web3 community, and the vision, and us moving towards a more decentralized network. and more enterprises kind of waking up to this movement that's taking place and seeing that there's a better way, and that the original vision of the internet was to be an open, decentralized internet. But unfortunately, we only walked away with 2 open protocols, which, Chris Dixon in his book Read, Write, Own does an amazing job. If everybody on this call should listen or read that book, which is, we got free email through, a simple mail transfer protocol, which is truly the only open protocol. And then we got, HTTP for websites, but we need to come back to the roots of the original vision of the web and make it an open web. So I'm excited for the next 5 years as that truly, that vision really starts to take hold and becomes a reality. From all the hard work of everybody, who are on these calls, and that are, and people like yourself, Marc, that are helping to educate and really push the industry forward to make that all become a reality.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Tyler. And speaking about hard work, I think, and that's my perspective. We've basically been building for the last 14 years since kind of Bitcoin and blockchain as a technology came along. And now I really think we're at the cusp of mass adoption. We've seen the first big wave of brands entering the space in the last 2 to 3 years. They did experiments, but now I think the infrastructure is ready, the scalability is ready, the UX is ready to really bring this to the mass consumers. And I think we're just getting started with that next wave now, and I'm very excited to see that. And see smart media technologies being part of that. If you want to learn more about smart media technologies, here is a QR code. You can scan it, visit their website. It's smartmediatechnologies.com. And anything else you want to say to the audience, Tyler?
No, thank you very much, Marc. It's been great. Love the community and all of the work that you're putting out and the great content, and looking forward to doing more of this together. So let's keep it going.
Thank you. Likewise. And all the listeners, thanks a lot for tuning in. It was great to have you here. And thanks for asking questions. We'll be back. And if we missed anything, we'll answer it in the comments after the event.
Yeah. Thanks, chat, for all the great questions. It's been great.
Cool. So have a great
Marc.
evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Cheers.